Be advised, the digital graveyard contains the following: adult language, bad advice, and spoilers. There will be no further warnings. Consider yourself disclaimed.
Well, we did it. Boys, girls, ladies and gentlemen, we did it. It's the second episode of the Digital Graveyard, the only podcast that you can write off on taxes as a deduction. Just don't tell the IRS you're doing it. I'm Eric Graves, one half of the Digital Graveyard. With me as always.
You got Bobby Digital here with you?
Yeah. Well, I have you, and the audience have you in.
Yeah, you have me with
home.
you.
Yeah.
Everyone has me in their heart, though.
Yeah, that's. Yeah. It was in us the whole time. It's the Digital Graveyard. We're back. This is the second episode. So it's not just a fluke at this point, right? We did it. We're not just a one-off thing. This is real now. It's real.
Yep, we passed over the first episode, and we're going to keep going. We're going to keep this train moving.
Yeah.
We got the momentum on our side now.
We had a whole, 13 listeners in the last week. It was great. I know in the last episode we said we'd call them out by name, but the first, without question, all of the listeners that I saw, or the people who liked us on Facebook first, were your girlfriend and our family and friends. So
Yeah.
I feel like people would call bullshit if we called them out on the air.
Yeah, that's very disingenuous. I will say, you know who you are. Thank you.
Yeah.
But, I mean...
and you know you're the cool ones if you're listening to this. Although if you're listening to this episode first, or if you're going back to listen to the first episode while this episode is aired, you can no longer say you were a fan from the beginning.
Right.
It's a very exclusive club that those people were in.
Yep, we only had 13 fans to begin with. You're not one of them now.
Yeah, we're going to make t-shirts, and we're going to get a club, and you can get into the club, but you are going to have to pay a premium, and that's how podcasts work. Well, we should start moving right along. I mean, how have you been, Bobby? I guess we can do some little pleasantries before we get into the thick of it.
I've been pretty good. Last weekend I went on a camping trip, and I did not hate it as much as I thought I would.
But there was no Netflix at all in camping trips.
I know, but I brought my comic books, and I just read on the lake.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm getting ready to move, as you know. So I haven't really been doing any. I've been apartment bound for the last week. But I've been getting into these Chinese sitcoms that are on Netflix now.
Okay.
Or I don't know if sitcom is the right word for them. They're like Chinese, it's kind of like Supernatural, but funnier. But there's it's a genre of Chinese cinema now that I've been hooked on. But that's just me.
I know you go through waves where you're really into foreign media.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated by what other people in other countries are watching, you know.
Yeah.
But they're definitely, I do go by country to country.
I do remember there was a point where at the Mall of America there was a kiosk stand that only sold foreign films, and you used to love going through there.
I was that guy's best customer.
Yeah.
I had so many. I have movies that aren't even good. I have movies that are ridiculous based on some Japanese comic book that has never been adapted into anything else. I still have them, man. If you're listening, foreign film kiosk guy, we need you now more than ever.
Yeah.
Please come back to us.
You gave me the Tekken movie.
Yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't
terrible.
good.
It was bad.
I remember that one.
But I remember it.
Yeah. So I mean, with pleasantries out of the way, let's get to it. It's been a big week of announcements, a huge week.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So Comicon at home happened.
Yeah.
Because we can't do regular Comicon, a lot of streamings, Zoom call type of deals. have
We
been
should say
happening for everything.
because you said this before we opened the mic, and then we proceeded not to do it. You mentioned Comicon at home happened. This is probably the first episode of August, right? Is the week of August. Is the date now?
Today's date is July 25th.
Is when we're recording. We're recording
Yeah.
this on a Saturday. It'll probably be uploaded the following week. The last week of July 2020 is when we're recording this. And also, before we got too far into this too, just because we forgot to do it last time, and I'm really, really upset about that. Thank you again for John Wheeler. And can we start over?
Let's start completely over.
Let's start completely over. Thanks again to John Wheeler and Sam Dunn for letting us use their theme song. That was amazing. They're super nice of them getting that out of the way so I didn't have to forget again. But let's keep going. So Comicon happened. Comicon happened to set a date on this episode. And that's probably why we have 1,000,001 things to talk about right now.
Yep.
But what was the first thing? You told me what the first thing was. Go ahead.
The one I'm going to talk about first is the New Mutants.
Yeah.
This movie was supposed to come out 3 years ago.
I sense a theme with the topics we're going to talk about in this episode, and then maybe we can come up with the title for it, something about things that should have happened years ago.
Yeah.
Because a couple of things I wanted to talk about, too, share that common theme. But yeah, New Mutants definitely has been one of those things that's been like... I don't think there's enough energy about it for people to be like, where's New Mutants? What's happening to New Mutants? But everybody, when you bring it up, has been like, oh.
I wanted to see that.
They're still doing that? They're still... I haven't heard about anything about that in a while. Because it's not just that production has been pushed back and they've been going through directors and they've been going through all kinds of cinema hell that a lot of these projects that are often doomed to fail and ultimately don't get released go through. But it's that they haven't really been updating people at all about it, really. They have a trailer. I've seen the trailer.
Yep.
The trailer made it seem like it was going to be a really creepy kind of like suspenseful thing about people discovering their powers at a very young age.
Well, and every few months they release just another trailer that doesn't show us much more, but just lets us know what's happening.
Yeah, at this point, I'm having difficulty discerning from like the fan-made trailers from what the actual official stuff is, just because it's such a drought on announcements that they've given out so far.
Right. Well, so they had a panel at this Comic-Con, and in it, they had a bunch of the actors and the directors and writers and just talk about the film, and then show us the first, the opening scene of the movie.
So Bobby, if you don't know, that's fine, but is filming done?
It was done 3 years ago.
Oh my God.
Only reason it hasn't come out is because
has been cinema hell shit, like production and money and producers
and the Fox Disney deal happened.
Yeah.
So that's what really messed with it.
Wow.
And then COVID happened. Like it was supposed to come out a little earlier this year. But then, COVID. So now they're being like, okay, August 28th, it's coming out. It's gonna be the only movie to come out in August because originally the movie Tenet and Mulan were supposed to also come out.
Yeah, I heard those got pushed back.
Indefinitely.
Yeah.
Right now they're like, we don't know.
So it's not inaccurate to say that this might be the only major motion picture released in the month of August.
Yeah.
Wow. But at least we do have a definitive release date for this, and it's a movie.
Yeah, it's a full-on movie. It's supposed to be like a horror movie meets superhero.
Yeah, which hasn't really been done. I mean,
besides Brightburn.
Yeah, that's true. But Brightburn wasn't based on any X-Men. It wasn't based on Marvel or DC. It was inspired by Superman. It's like what if Superman was bad? So it's a play on it, but yeah, we've talked about this before, how Guardians of the Galaxy kind of said, you don't just have to do a superhero action movie. You can do other genres. You can do a fun sci-fi adventure,
Well, like Logan is a Western mixed with superhero.
Yeah, totally. Logan is a total Western. I mean, the Punisher, the original Punisher movie was also very inspired by a lot of Western cinematography. Yeah.
Captain America: Winter Soldier is a spy thriller.
It's so these things have been done before, and Hellboy is a very supernatural thriller too. I mean, we don't really think of Hellboy as being a comic book movie just because it was so in line with a lot of movies from that decade that were this supernatural action films. But again, Hellboy is definitively not a Marvel film.
No. Yeah.
It's not that kind of a movie. So you can go different directions with these, and I was really intrigued by the trailer that they first put out, showing just how far they're leaning into suspense and horror, because it's definitely the first time that a superhero movie, let alone a Marvel movie, has said, this is not going to be an action film. This is going to be a horror film. You can't misconstrue it. Like this. I mean, maybe it is going to be a wacky teen rom-com or whatever, like the old bait and switch, the whole Drive thing.
Right.
But yeah, no one can watch the trailer for New Mutants and think that you're going to take your teenage kid to go see it, or I mean, teenagers love that shit. Little kid to it,
Yeah, it's definitely aimed for the teenage to adult audience.
Yeah.
And people were legitimately excited. And then this whole Fox and Disney deal happened, and it's been shelved.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have been like, why don't you just put it on Disney Plus?
Yeah, and I think the other reason a lot of people are excited is because not only is this new characters that nobody's seen before, it's also the first, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first X-Men release since the Disney deal, but it's also the first since Dark Phoenix.
I believe Dark Phoenix came out after the Disney deal.
Yeah.
But the New Mutants and Dark Phoenix was supposed to be it. And then and then X-Men belongs to Disney now.
So clearly this is kind of like the last breath of the post-Disney X-Men universe, but also it could also be like the new New Mutants, the new chapter in the new direction. So people are right to be excited, and people are right to be really intrigued about this and frustrated by these many delays. It's good that we're finally getting to a point where it's coming out.
Well, and the big thing about why don't we just put it on Disney Plus? Because Disney has already moved 3 of their movies that were supposed to release in theaters to Disney Plus. Yeah. Those being Artemis Fowl, the one and only Ivan, and Hamilton. Those were all supposed to have theatrical releases, but they put on Disney Plus because
well, there's so many. I've been reading about the politics of releasing movies exclusively on streaming platforms is so all over the place because theatrical releases that's where the money is,
Right.
And Artemis Fowl and I can say the Incredible Ivan were both movies that were kind of moved around a lot, and the company didn't have a lot of confidence in. I'm sure Hamilton is something that they're regretting not having in theaters, but it's debatable whether the other two would have had a very successful release, theatrical run. New Mutants is also, again, I think debatable too. So you're right to bring up Disney Plus in this conversation. I mean, the point that I made earlier about this being the first X-Men title exclusively this is Disney. Even though it was filmed before the deal, it was delayed this long because Disney is making it Disney's. Yeah, I guess there's not much else to say. We're pretty much just speculating at this point. But that's all we've been doing for 3 years with New Mutants.
For real, though. For real. And it's a shame because that movie's got talented actors, and they were all so excited.
Talented young actors with the potential to make their careers, right? Look at. I mean, we've talked about this before. We had a podcast all the time. How nobody knew Chris Hemsworth before he was Thor. He had one brief scene, a very powerful scene in the Star Trek movie, the first one, and not what else was he in before Thor? Now he's a household name. Robert Downey Jr. successfully made his comeback. That people were writing jokes about him on The Simpsons because his career was so over, and then he became the biggest celebrity in the world because of these superhero movies. They have the power. Hugh Jackman too. What was Hugh Jackman in before the first X-Men movie? Going way back. These movies have the power to make people's careers, and especially with New Mutants, which is all about very young characters, and these Maisie Williams is the only one that I can remember off the top of my head. Maisie Williams from Game of Thrones.
Right. But at least a couple of them I recognize from something.
Yeah.
I can't pinpoint them.
Well, that's my point. You have Maisie Williams,
who's got using characters who just would never make it into a regular X-Men movie.
Oh, for sure.
Like Magic and what's her name, Moonstar.
You can use. I'm not sure. I know Magic, but yeah. There's so many. It's new characters, the careers of new actors and actresses, and there's a lot of potential with this film. People have a reason to be anxious about it and wonder about it, and we just have to wait and see. Hopefully, I mean, it's not coming out too late. What did you say, the 28th?
Yeah, the 28th.
So
month.
We'll find out really, really soon here. We can move on. Do you want to do another one of yours? Do you want to pull up one of mine? Mine are going to be pretty short.
Let's pull up one of yours.
Okay, cool. I guess the first thing I want to talk about is, speaking of the theme being things that have been delayed and pushed back and have been up in the air about whether they're even still going on. A game that I was really intrigued by when I first heard about it 3 years ago from THQ and Nordic is Biomutant. Have you heard about this, Bobby?
I don't even know what that game is.
Wow, yeah, it's coming to all platforms. It's you play as like a weird little red panda thing or something. It's one of those. As I've aged, Bobby, I've come to realize, I was a super like edgy hard rock goth edgelord in high school. It's odd that my characteristics have been defined by two things as I've gotten older, and that's cartoons and horror movies.
Sure.
Those are like my two favorite things in the world. Biomutant is something that probably caught my attention because for the same reason I love Oddworld as much as I do, or really even like Ratchet and Clank. It's got adorable characters in very not adorable situations.
Right. Were you a fan of like the Jak and Daxter series then?
I did love Jak and Daxter, yeah, until they started racing.
Yeah.
Loved it exactly up until that point. And
that was Naughty Dog's problem. They were always like, let's make a trilogy of games that are awesome.
Yeah, I've seen
and then
the
a
meme.
racer.
Yeah, we've all seen the meme. Still waiting on the Uncharted racer. Even though there were some levels in a couple of those games that could have been concentrated battle racing, but oh well. Anyway, yeah, this Biomutant game, give it a look because it's one of those games that's been talked about for a while. It was first put on the scene like the same time that Beyond Good and Evil 2 was released a trailer, and now nobody knows if that's going on anymore. Like nobody has any idea if we'll ever see Beyond Good and Evil. But we are getting it's officially stated that Nordic still plans to release this game. They didn't give us an exact date, but it's basically you play as like these little red panda critters, and instead of when you like upgrade and level up, you don't upgrade your stats, you mutate. To upgrade your stats, like developing better limbs for jumping or things like that. And also there's guns and swords and chainsaws.
There you go. You won me.
Yeah, the trailer is really cool too. They released 9 minutes of gameplay if you want to check it out. And the one I do got to say the physics that they've displayed in the game are a little wonky by my look. But you're fighting a lot of very big, fluffy Godzilla-sized monsters with tiny little panda bears with chainsaws, and I was very interested in this, so I wanted to bring that up because that was really cool. But yeah, to your point, like about things that have been delayed, but they're still there.
Well,
we can still talk about it.
Since we are talking about this video game thing and
sure.
things that have been delayed, let's talk about one that I know you've been excited for and you backed. Like back when it was first like announced.
Yeah. If you want to go right into it, man.
Psychonauts 2.
Yeah, I was still living in Iowa when I backed Psychonauts 2, so it's been at least 4 years.
Yep, they got a new trailer out for it. It happened at the Xbox Live event.
Yeah, because Xbox officially owns Double Fine now. It's still coming to all platforms, which is something that they've been very clear about. But yeah, it is officially being distributed by Microsoft, and they are adding more funding, which is good. When I heard that Microsoft was buying them, I thought about all the possibilities. Then I found out, according to Tim Schafer, lead designer of developer of Double Fine, according to Tim Schafer, because of budget constraints, they didn't have any boss fights programmed into the final version of the game that would have ported.
What?
Yeah, and
that's so weird for like a platformer to like not have.
Well, do you remember Alice Madness Returns?
Sure.
I played that when it came out on the PS3, and I really enjoyed it. But that had the same problem. There's one boss fight in the game at the very end, and it's a beautiful game that's actually really like engaging, not just story-wise, but gameplay-wise. It's a really like dynamic kind of gameplay. But by the last level of that game, you are praying for it to be over just because there's no punctuation at the end of each level. And so and Psychonauts is a fantastic game, and I added up there were like 3 or 4 levels in the original game that don't have boss fights either. So I know that they can still make very engaging levels without boss fights, but I can't help but worry that it would have ended up the same way as Alice Madness Returns to me.
Right, just kind of a slog to get through.
Yeah, like a beautiful roller coaster that goes on for a little too many more hills than you want it to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like every world needs some kind of like punctuation, and a boss fight is usually it.
Yeah, especially, and I mean, you don't see this so much these days, but back in the day, boss fights could really demonstrate creativity in what the designers were trying to. You had to get around them, and Psychonauts did such a good job doing that. Like each boss was something you had to think about.
Well, and ideally, any boss shows that you have mastered a certain level of the controls of the game.
And that's what Psychonauts was, because each level is a different mind. If you're not familiar with Psychonauts, it was a game that was released in 2003. 2005 on all consoles. It was Double Fine's first game. Tim Schafer made a lot of money from making Grim Fandango, Monkey Island, Full Throttle, and other games that he made with LucasArts, and he started his own company. It's a game about a psychic carny, a kid who was raised in a carny. We mentioned him on the last show. Richard Horvitz voices him, the same guy that did Invader Zim. He goes to a secret summer camp that's actually a front for training psychic secret agents, and each level is inside somebody's mind. So each level is like a different art project almost, to reflect how that person thinks. It's cult classic is technically the term you use for it. I feel like it's so much more for that, but I know that just because I'm the biggest fan of Psychonauts in the world. And as you mentioned, I did back the crowdfunding campaign to get Psychonauts 2. I got the T-shirt. I could have been wearing it today. Yep. Oh, man.
And since the release of the first one, all they've really done with the franchise is a VR game, right?
Yeah,
and that was really it?
The Rhombus of Ruin, which wasn't bad. But it's just a typical VR puzzle game.
Yeah.
It was again. I played it and I've replayed it actually because I love those characters so much. But yeah, it's not that was all they did. That was all they did.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too. But as to your point, they pushed back the release date again, which might be wishful thinking. Makes me want to say that it's because Microsoft is giving them more money so they can polish it up better and refine it. The pessimist in me wants to say it's because Tim Schafer probably doesn't manage his money as well as he could, because that's been an issue with Double Fine in a lot of other games that they've crowdfunded and kickstarted. Most famously, the Double Fine Adventure, which eventually became Broken Age, was at the time the most successful Kickstarter in history. And they still ran out of money. They still had to release the first half of the game first and then release the second half of the game after people bought more money into it. He got so much flack for that. I know people are going to say that about this again, especially with the revelation that there weren't going to be boss fights in the game.
But now that Microsoft is backing it, that's not necessarily part of the argument anymore, right?
I want to say that it's now that Microsoft is backing it, we will get a definitive release date. We will get the game that Tim Schafer and his cohorts, because I follow them on YouTube. I'm such a big fan of all of their work. We will get the game that, and I get it too. If you're Tim Schafer, how gutting and crushing it must be to run out of funding again on a crowdfunded project it means you have to cut content from your game. That must be like pulling his fingernails out. This is the game that made his career. This is the game that made his studio. Of course he doesn't want to see this compromised in any way. I'm sure that's why he graciously accepted the Microsoft deal, because now he has the money to do it. I just hope with this, because that's the thing about the trailer. The new trailer's great. We've only seen really 2 full levels yet of the game. One is a roller coaster of teeth. Inside the mind of an insane dentist. And the other one is a psychedelic utopia of senses inside a brain in a jar with a musical number by Jack Black, which is pulling the headlines right now, which is whatever gives attention to this game. Whatever gives attention to this game is great. Because Jack Black's a fan of Tim Schafer, too.
And he worked with him on Brutal Legend.
He made a game with him, and he's been in a lot of other games with him, too, since then. They're like friends. They hang out a lot, kind of. But, and as much attention as this is getting, I can't help but feel a little bit confident, and maybe that's just me being an optimist, that this finally means we will get a definitive release date soon for when Psychonauts is ready to port. Because right now it's been pushed back 3 times. It was supposed to come out in 2019. It was hoped that it would come out in 2018, and then Zach McClellan, who was at the time the lead program director, said, we've got to push it back to 2019, then 2020, then 2021. So
when I suggested this as one of the topics, I was just expecting you to be like, I love Psychonauts so much, but man, the entire history of this company.
Bobby, I dropped like $300 on the Kickstarter. I've been constantly keeping tabs on this is my investments. I'm monitoring my portfolio that I'll never see. The only return on this portfolio will be a game that I can play. So of course I have a vested interest in coming back. Sorry.
Oh
yeah,
my goodness.
I know
yeah.
I'm supposed to be the funny one, but I don't joke about Psychonauts.
Yeah, not about Psychonauts. Anything
Never
else.
about Psychonauts.
Let's joke about this because I just want to talk about it because I just want to talk about how frustrated I am with this franchise here. Inuyasha.
Oh, sure. Speaking of, man, we're really things that we like that are frustrating us lately. This is the theme.
No, this isn't lately. This frustrated me as a kid.
No, go
like
on.
being 10. But real quick, the news is that Inuyasha has been greenlit to have a sequel series.
Okay, it's a series, not a movie.
Right. At first, I thought it was a movie, but nope. Now they're doing a full-on series that'll follow the daughters of Kagome and Inuyasha.
Yep, I knew about that.
And Sesshomaru's daughter.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So, like Boruto.
I mean, more or less. So, the series is going to be called Yashahime,
Yeah, okay.
the princess half-demon.
Is that what Yasha means?
I don't know.
Huh, I've never looked it up.
You know what? Probably, because Inuyasha, Yashahime.
Hime means princess. I totally know that.
Yeah, princess half-demon. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we just discovered how to speak Japanese. But this week they showed off what Kagome and Inuyasha's daughter looks like. She looks like Kagome, but wearing Inuyasha's red. Like, that's really it.
Well, okay, but it's been so long since I've, like you said, it's been so long since I've done anything with this IP. I just.
Do you want to know why I hate it?
Yeah, why don't you say that, and then I'll think about my rebuttal.
So, back when Inuyasha first came out, we were about maybe 10-ish. Well, when I saw it, we were about
10
maybe
or 11,
10-ish.
yeah. I mean, it was Adult Swim was just getting into anime at the time when they first started. It was probably within the same year that Adult Swim started, yeah.
Inuyasha is filler the anime.
Yeah.
Like, people complain about shows like Naruto or
Yeah.
Bleach having, like, filler arcs. Inuyasha, the entire series is filler.
Yeah, it's like 10 episodes that will have a story, but that story is not even related to anything.
I never even finished it because, like...
No one did, dude. Like,
Yeah.
I remember this was years ago. I watched every single episode that was available on Netflix, and then I went to Hulu and watched every single episode that was available. And maybe Crunchyroll has, like, some out from the works, but Crunchyroll wasn't even a thing back when I was looking these up. I don't think they ever get, what's his name, Naraku? I don't think they ever get him. I don't think they ever do.
Yeah. No, they do in one of the movies.
I remember that, but isn't it like, okay, well, that wasn't really him or something? Like, there was some, like, cliffhanger or something at the end?
That's how they treated him in every time they would beat him in the show.
Exactly,
It's just like,
yeah.
It wasn't him, it was a clone.
You don't get it.
like-
It's the anime that never ends.
I hated it for that. And it's like, and I get it. You design certain shows to be so that they potentially can go on forever.
It's also a product of its time too. You know, you have before this series are not there isn't a platform in the United States to give these drawn out anime epics that there is today, and now the American reaction to anime has really kind of defined the series length. It's sort of a reactional symbiosis kind of, but yeah, like Slayers is another one too that not a lot of people have seen, but back in the day it was one of the first anime that to get popular in the U.S. and it goes on, it goes and goes and goes, and there's multiple series and multiple seasons and characters that'll be added. Or Pokemon's another great example.
But see, like Pokemon and even Slayers, like the way they're designed is that like they don't necessarily have an endpoint. Inuyasha from the get-go had one. They were like, we have to collect all the
That's true.
shards.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's the entire arc of the entire show.
Yeah.
They don't ever do it. And it's so annoying.
Yeah, and they had how many movies that it's just completely unrelated to everything. And,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah. And so yeah, they're doing the sequel series following the daughters of Inuyasha, the main character.
And Sesshomaru, his
and
brother.
Kagome.
Yeah.
And then Sesshomaru's daughter as well. Thing is, I don't know who Yashahime is because that is not the daughter of Inuyasha.
Maybe it's just the title.
Maybe, I guess.
Maybe because what are they? Because they called Inuyasha something. They called him like mongrel or something. They had like
Well,
some
they called him
title
a
for
mongrel just to be like he's a dog. Like
Maybe
he's
that's
lesser
like
than.
maybe Inuyasha's daughter is like
Her name is-
it's the half demon princess.
Her name is Moroha. Moroha.
Maybe we don't know Japanese.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, like I just want to express like how frustrating of an anime that was, and that like
Sure.
it's cool that it's coming
Sure.
back, but like damn. Like I hated Inuyasha as a kid.
Yeah. Well, I mean, is there any indication at all that this will have any kind of conclusion, or is this going to start off a whole new thing like Boruto did?
It's starting off a whole new thing. But something that's got a lot of fans talking about it is that apparently Inuyasha and Kagome's daughter has been like living on her own her entire life.
What?
So they're not even like a family. Like something happened to Kagome and Inuyasha.
Well, thinking about like how those two characters were on the show and the decisions that they would often make, I guess I'm not. This is gonna sound terrible. I'm not surprised that they're
terrible
not great
parents?
Yeah, they're terrible parents. I mean, are you? Like,
I mean,
really? Kagome's got class in the morning, and Inuyasha's,
Yes.
a terrible half demon,
borderline abusive.
Yeah,
boyfriend.
he's like.
Like,
He's literally trying to become a full demon so that he doesn't have to care about things the way humans do. That was his whole thing.
yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That show, man.
No,
Also, like, literally, anytime I hear someone shout, I just think of the whole Kagome. Like, oh my gosh, every episode.
Every episode, man.
Oh,
Was that was almost their theme song. So yeah, that'll be we're a little past the halfway mark too. So we're making some good time with this. If we want to keep moving along, if we want to keep saying Inuyasha and Kagome at the top of our lungs some more, we can do that. Inuyasha! Kagome! Okay, enough of that.
Anyways,
let's move on.
Let's move on. Bill and Ted.
Yeah!
Bill and Ted is finally happening.
The original Eric Graves and Bobby Digital, Bill and Ted.
Oh my gosh. Excellent.
Now that I've said it, you can't unsee it.
Which do I get to be?
Bobby.
Oh.
Okay, well,
I'm not Keanu Reeves.
Let's talk about Bill and Ted.
All right, so Bill and Ted 3 is happening.
Yeah, it's, again, another thing that we heard about years ago that's finally happening.
Yep.
Finally.
I do know part of the reason that they didn't make 3 to begin with was because the actor that played Rufus had passed away.
Yeah.
Which-
yeah. How do I not know his name?
I know, and he was in
He's one of the most famous comedians. Oh my god.
yeah, like I recognize him.
George Carlin? I don't know. Okay.
But anyways, he passed, so that was like one reason why they like didn't continue with it. But eventually they got around to making it, and so it is releasing. They're doing.
They've got a trailer. I've seen the trailer.
They got a trailer, and they're doing like a half and half thing of like we're going to do a theatrical release, but because of the way movie theaters are right now, we're also going to release digitally.
Yeah, Keanu and Alex Winters don't need. They're like, we don't need a.
Well,
big
Alex
theater
Winters
release.
is like a pretty big director now.
He produces and he directs. Like I don't know. I'd be lying if I said I'd followed his career, but I know he's not done bad.
Yeah.
Like and every now and then a cameo or two, you know. And Keanu Reeves was in The Matrix and never needed to work again in his life, but he does it because he's a good guy.
I want to know, when did like the world collectively decide Keanu Reeves is perfect?
It was last year's E3 where it was revealed that he is going to be in Cyberpunk.
Right, and at the same time, like I was watching some movie, I don't even remember it, but like he showed up as like the main love interest date for the night, and it's just like, that's Keanu Reeves.
That's great, because I'll say it too. I mean, I love Keanu Reeves. He's not a great actor, but
He's not
a great actor.
He's very wooden in a lot of his performances.
That's okay. How many other actors can you use an adjective? He's very wooden. But yeah, no, it works for Keanu Reeves. He's especially like, oh my god, when he was in Dracula opposite Commissioner Gordon. What's his name?
Which Commissioner Gordon?
The one from The Dark Knight. The one that everybody, like Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman, yeah.
Gary Oldman played Dracula in the 2000s version of Dracula, and Keanu Reeves played Jonathan Harker, which is a book that I'm actually reading now, which is how I know that character's name. But he's just like, are you telling me that there are wolves out in Trent? He's terrible. Him and his girlfriend's Winona Ryder. Oh my God, their accents are the worst. Anyway, no, we're not here to drag on Keanu Reeves because he's been through enough and he's a treasure, and we shouldn't say anything bad about him. Because it's not because, like I said, he didn't need to act for such a very long time, and he didn't. Why? Because he was taking care of his sick sister or whatever, right? Like he was donating to charities. He was speaking at fundraisers. Like, he was doing these things while he wasn't acting. He objectively used his stardom, much like Leonardo DiCaprio, for being a climate activist too. Like, Keanu Reeves was out there advocating for homelessness and anti-poverty and things like that. Yeah. And so,
like, we're not gonna rag on him for being a bad actor or anything like that. And
he's been in higher grossing movies than you or I will ever be in.
Yeah, and really, he's doing Bill and Ted because he wants to do it.
Because we want him to do it. They're both doing it for us.
Right.
Because they know we need them right now.
It's so weird to think of him playing that character again because, most of his performances after Bill and Ted are very serious and...
Yeah, because his career was sort of defined by The Matrix. The closest he comes to Bill and Ted is, and this is true, before he was in Bill and Ted, he was in Babes in Toyland with Drew Barrymore, and it's awful. And he still plays that kind of cool guy, and then Point Break, because he was also in Point Break, and he played a surfer dude. But that's a very serious movie too, which kind of started his action career.
Because he did The Matrix, and then he did Constantine, and
he did do Constantine. He did The Day the Earth Stood Still. He did The Lake House, which is a different kind of action. The action of time-traveling romance.
Yeah. The action of love.
I think. Oh, and he was in Speed. He was in Speed. He was in Speed before The Matrix, wasn't he? I don't know. Yeah, but yeah, we've been talking about Bobby. Look at what we did. We were gonna talk about Bill and Ted's Face the Music, and instead we spent a good 10 minutes just talking about Keanu Reeves and why, despite everything, he's still America's darling.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah. They did a Comicon. They said we're going to do a half and half release in theaters, but we're also doing a digital release, which a lot of movies should really look more into. The first movie that did it since COVID was the Trolls World Tour.
Yeah.
And that proved to be very successful to them. And I actually read an article being it is smart for these production companies to look into digital release only.
Yeah, it's not what would the downsides be? Not everybody has the digital infrastructure to get high-speed internet for streaming, okay, but there are also not movie theaters in most towns that don't have the infrastructure for high-speed internet as well. So people who are going to go see these movies in the theaters who live in rural areas would still be driving to go see them. Whereas now, they'd probably go see them at Redbox anyway in a couple of weeks or at the dollar store or something. Right. So that box office revenue isn't being lost or gained by this either. I don't understand, how you can't. It's don't release it to Netflix, don't release it to Hulu, just release it for a premium on Amazon Prime or
whatever, yeah.
Roku or what have you,
I had one person break it down to me of being okay, for an average consumer, let's say you and a date want to go see Bill and Ted.
Okay, wishful thinking that I'm bringing a date to go see Bill and Ted Face the Music, but go on, Bobby, I'll humor you.
All right, let's say it costs you guys $10.50 to
about $10.50
for 2 tickets. For a ticket each.
Yeah, a ticket each.
So that's already $21 there. And then let's say you want to get concessions as well.
Sure.
At the cheapest, that's going to be $6.
Yeah, but the concessions generally go for the theater's overhead, not the release of the movie.
I know,
right?
But we're talking about just for you, a consumer, the better deal of right there, that's over $25.
Yeah.
Now, let's say you just rent it for $20.
Sure.
To stream on your home TV.
Yeah.
You, a date, or a group of friends, or your family can all watch it for that price, and you do your own food at home.
Or me alone on Netflix with a beer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is the more realistic of the situation. But, yeah.
You could have a movie party at your place. But
totally.
For a consumer, it makes sense to move towards, the digital release structure. I do love the idea of movie theaters. I love going to movie theaters.
Everybody loves movie theaters, man. Like nobody, like we still, like people have been saying that the movie industry is going to die when television came out. People are saying the movie industry is going to die when streaming came out. People are saying movies industry is going to die when the rental industry happened. It never happens. Industries don't die; they just change. And you can either be like iTunes and be smart about changes, or you can be like the rest of the music industry and not be smart about changes and try to fight them, and then end up with iTunes controlling all the digital streaming in the world, which isn't so much the case now, but at the time, record companies, I think, took a bigger hit fighting Napster than embracing the technology.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are movie studios that are going to dig their heels in and not have a good time, but I feel like they're going to fall by the wayside very quickly because of our reality right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas Disney or whoever could have tried to fight their products getting onto Netflix and Hulu and whatever. The fiduciary logic behind it is a little less sound. It makes more sense to have people see it or against having nobody see it,
Right.
Which is the option.
And like any of these studios can look into a way so that they earn more money from the digital streaming service, right? Just be like, okay, let's say Warner Brothers is just like, okay, we'll make our own website. This is where you will be able to pay and download for our movies that are coming to theaters right now. And it's like, there's how you get all the money, Warner Brothers.
Or even you don't even if Warner Brothers doesn't want to foot the bill on having a streaming service programmed into their web pages and stuff, because that is a difficult thing to do, to work on to get all of that programming and everything and the bandwidth of that many people streaming. They can work out a deal with Amazon Prime or Hulu or Netflix or what have you, and it's like, okay, well, go to our website, plug in the PayPal account. Here's the code that you give to these streaming services to watch these movies. Like, there's no reason every film studio in the world can't do that.
Right.
And that's not to say that theaters are going anywhere. Like, I think theaters can socially distant viewing. I think that's possible.
I've been to the Imagine Theater, which right now is doing.
I've actually heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
How was that?
They're showing like older movies for like really cheap. Like we went and saw Deadpool.
Yeah, nice.
And it was literally us and one other couple in the entire theater, and it was great, but obviously like not ideal for them.
Yeah.
But
people have seen like the new like IMAX concepts are like they look like the Senate from Star Wars. Like they have these little like booths almost for everybody.
Yeah.
Like with 2 or 3 seats in them for your group or whatever. That's going to have a heavy burden on the cost of movie theater renovations. But in the long run, I mean, isn't that kind of the direction that movie theaters are heading in anyway?
I think it would be ideal for most movie theaters, like in addition to playing the new stuff, like let's just show old movies that like it's an event. Like
100%. 100% I agree.
Like I was looking at the movies they were showing, they were like Deadpool, that's what we ended up seeing. But they also had like the first Harry Potter, Jurassic Park, one of the Star Wars movies. I'm like, these are movies that I'm not like a lot of people never got to see in theaters. Either they missed it or they weren't born yet. So like it would be fun to watch those in a theater.
Yeah.
Like, they're big movies to do that
for. And retro viewing is something that I really got back into in college and then had to take a break from when I lived in Iowa. And then when I moved back, we both kind of got into, like, the midnight movies that they used to do downtown in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And
where I would fall asleep every time.
Every time. It wouldn't be a proper Midnight Madness without Bobby falling asleep.
They're midnight movies.
Yeah, no, nobody judges you. You're allowed. It's a safe space. But it is, and we've been to movies where you'd have to get your tickets 3 days in advance because they would sell it so quickly. Yeah. And then there were movies where it was literally just you and I and maybe 2 other people in there. But I find it difficult to believe that theater is taking that big of a hit, losing the money on the rights to play Barbarella once. You know what I mean? Like that probably cost them $8 to get the leasing rights to film that in the theater. I don't know anything about how movies get their rights to theaters. But yeah, if a movie wants to have on one screen Jurassic Park playing this weekend, Terminator playing next weekend, then why can't they do that? I feel like that is something that should be at more theaters because there's clearly a market for it, not a huge one, but anything to make money, right? Like, it just seems the direction that it should be heading in my mind, but I'm admittedly biased about it. But yeah.
Well, and again, I don't know the whole deal of it either, but I assume it costs more to get a brand new film as opposed to an older one.
You know, that's what I've been hearing too, especially with Disney dominating the market so much because they'll charge theaters they'll write in like the contract that they need to be at certain size screens, you know, or they need to guarantee like this many seats or stuff like this for their films, or like they have to be viewed on these size screens for this amount of time for this long, and the more and more consolidated the blockbuster movie industry becomes, like, I gotta say, like the costs among theaters have to be comparable to just renovating a new socially distant theater, I would say.
Yeah.
You know? So the plight of the modern American movie theater, Bobby, that's what this episode should be called.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, love it. Write it down.
That's or maybe the book that we should write with all of our clearly expert knowledge. You heard the disclaimer; we're not experts, but let's keep rolling because we've been talking about movies for a little while. We're past the 45-minute mark, so let's keep it rolling.
All right. Do you have something or?
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna. I had one more thing. I was gonna talk about a couple of the titles that were talked about at the Xbox One Microsoft events, the Xbox Series X console event. Excuse me. That's 3 X's in that title. They need to stick more X's in that. Now, for full disclosure, you and I,
3 X's is the perfect amount of X's.
The perfect amount of X's.
Yeah. Some Ice Cube, Tommy.
So we got to. So he wasn't even in the original Triple X, Bobby. It was, Vin Diesel was the first Triple X.
You're right. Wait, was he a Triple X though?
Ice Cube, yeah, he was a Triple X once.
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
See, I'm not wrong.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're just not as right as you could be, or should have been, arguably. And anyway, now full disclosure to those listeners out there in radio podcast land, we are not Xbox fan. I've never owned an Xbox. Have you?
Yes, but it was my brother's.
Oh, sure. So I'm not a big. I'm probably not going to play a lot of these games that they released. The big one, and we shared this to the Facebook page, was Fable. There's a new Fable coming out.
Yep, I did love Fable when that came out.
Fable is just a good game series. Arguably, like with the one of the first games to really have a morality system ingrained in it, but also just a great story and a great gameplay. Obviously, people are freaking out about that, understandably. So that's the big one that they announced. Well, okay, not the big one, but
that's one of the big ones.
You know the big one that was announced.
Yeah.
Is Halo.
It's always going to be Halo. That's Microsoft's one big IP. And I say one, obviously they have others, but Halo is the system seller.
Yeah, Super Smash Bros. Xbox would just be different color Master Chief variants.
Right.
No, I get it. And I do feel, like I said, I've mentioned, well, I don't think I've actually said this, but we talked about Psychonauts, which was also premiered at that the trailer premiered at the Xbox event. I feel like the logic of buying up Double Fine, just straight out buying them, because Double Fine, when they started, was originally going to be an Xbox exclusive producer or developer. That's what they were going to be, and then Ed Freeze got fired as creative director. When Ed Freeze was the director of Xbox in the beginning, that was when you saw Oddworld. That was when you saw like Blinks. That's when you saw Voodoo Vic and all these weird like cartoony like psychedelic Xbox games. And then after he got left, it went all first-person shooters.
Well, like from the get-go, Xbox tried to like establish themselves as being like slightly more mature than the other systems.
But
so even with their mascotty characters, they were like, but they have edge to them.
Yeah, but behind and the reason for that was because behind the scenes, and this is something that I've learned just from reading and watching a lot about Double Fine's sort of experience. Behind the scenes, what they were going up to developers and saying, you wanted to make some weird games, you wanted to make some weird art as video games, like we will let you do that, and then we have this console that will graphically let you make really beautiful, bizarre looking games, and then Bizarre stopped selling, and Xbox just looked at the numbers and started first-person shooters, racing games, when I first heard that Xbox, because Xbox approached Double Fine, they didn't shop around for that at all. When I first heard that they bought them up, I was like, okay, Xbox is. I think that Microsoft is trying to go back in that direction of we can start. You can make money off of weird stuff, and from a lot of like some of the things that I'm reading about this event. There's, you got Forza, you got Fable, you got Halo, you got
The Outer Worlds, Dusk Falls.
Dusk Falls, yeah, the typical shooters and adventures and what have you. Have you heard? Did you see? This is Grounded.
What do you mean?
Grounded. It's a game that they announced. I don't know how big it's gonna be. You play as tiny little people fighting off giant insects. Well, they're normal-sized insects, but you're very tiny.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
See, that sounds fun.
There were like N64 games that were just like that, all sorts of fun stuff like that.
Like A Bug's Life.
Yeah. No. Or I was gonna say the Small Soldiers game.
Oh, dude, I loved the Small Soldiers game.
But yeah, and I feel like the announcement of Fable, which arguably I think energized more Xbox gamers than Halo did. I don't have the numbers. I'm not a marketing expert yet, but
if you could compare the Halo franchise to be like the Mario of the Xbox, then Fable was kind of like its Zelda.
I don't think anyone can compare Halo to Mario, but I get it.
You know what I mean.
Flagship
like
titles.
The flagship, and then like Fable was like not as big, but still very loved.
Well, yeah, and Fable was always a PC game, and then Microsoft has always had it. They've always, I think the second and third ones were exclusive to Xbox. I'm not sure. I only ever played the first one.
I played 1 and 2, and then I know they made they made it 3.
Yeah, they made a third one. They totally did. It was on 360, I think.
Yep, and a Kinect game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Kinect game is terrible. It's like an on-rail shooter.
Oh, really?
Which is like...
I was going to joke and make a joke about it being a dance party game.
That would have been actually fun.
Dancing with the Hobbs and the Balverines or whatever.
I will say, best Kinect game is the Star Wars Kinect.
Okay.
The dancing one.
Well, all right. But yeah, so I wanted to talk about... what I've and this game Everwild too, which is another like a fantasy adventure game, but graphically it looks very striking and cel shaded and almost like something that you would see on like Firewatch, like an indie title like that. Which the Xbox 360 was big on allowing people to play indie titles, but it wasn't putting money into indie titles, which I feel like. The statement that they're trying to make with the Xbox Series X, which has the appropriate amount of X's in the title, is that we are embracing. AAA games are still going to be a thing. They're not going anywhere. Right. But like PlayStation 4 really did a good job of. It's like, hey, look at all this weird stuff that everybody's making. We want you to play it on our console.
Yeah, if there's one good big thing that happened with the with this current generation of the PS4 was that we have a lot of good titles and they're all very diverse.
Well, you got to give it to Steam too. Like just the advent of Steam, like the iTunes of video games. Like anybody can make this. 3 guys can make a crappy game in their garage, put it on Steam, and build a community around it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, the console wars are almost over for this generation. I think a lot of people would give it to the PlayStation 4. You know, because they love the.
But we're biased.
Loved them. Yeah, we're both Sony guys. We're Sony bros. We're definitely biased.
Honestly, I do play my Switch more often than I play my PS4, but that's because I'm playing stuff like Pokemon and Fire Emblem.
Yeah, I'm coming over when you get Pokemon Snap, by the way.
Oh, hell yeah. Let's do that.
We're going to do that. We're going to make a day of it. We're going to get some nice snacks, some charcuterie trays because we're fucking adults now.
Yeah.
But we're going to take pictures
of Pokemon. We're going to be classy as fuck and drink wine.
Right. It's just I got a nice Riesling that'll pair well with this brie, and we're going to take some pictures of those Whalmers over yonder.
Oh my
it's
God.
Gonna happen.
I cannot wait.
We're going to make a day of it. It's going to be That's the episode of this. That's the name of this episode, Pokemon Snap and Chill or something.
There we go. All right. Should we just move on to the last really big news?
We are in the home stretch here. If you want to do the last big one, and then we can do the rapid fire because we're heading into the close to an hour. We're pushing it, but we can go a little over.
Yeah. Okay. So a teaser went out about G4, the old channel, returning.
I wish we could be breaking this news, but the fact is, the second that went out, because it was at the Comicon thing too, as I recall. Like that was when it was announced.
Yeah, it came out yesterday.
Yeah. The second it was on the internet, it was everywhere on the internet. Everybody was talking about it. Everybody.
Yeah.
And we're talking about things that have been delayed and pushed back. Well, here's something that was just cut and just stopped and ended.
Yeah.
And nobody wanted it to. Nobody. But
well, towards the end of G4, it was really like.
Do you want to talk about the announcement first, or do you want to talk about the problems with G4 first? Because I have thoughts on both.
Okay. Okay. Let's just start with the announcement, and then we'll get into our experiences and everything. So
and that's how we'll end the episode. It'll be perfect.
So yeah, a teaser video came out during Comic-Con Home with at the IGN Live, and like it straight up was just like showed the G4 logo. It did the iconic like video gamey sounds, and then it just said like we never stopped playing.
Yeah.
2021.
Yeah.
And it's like okay, so yeah.
Dude, I got goosebumps.
So it's coming 2021. We don't know yet if they're going to do like either a TV channel like they used to have.
That's what
or if it's going to be an internet-based thing.
I feel like it's, do you know, like last Comic-Con when it was like, oh, hey, look, Invader Zim movie. And then there's like, they didn't say anything else. But it's they do this a lot, like the teasers, just to kind of test the waters and see how people will react to it.
Yeah.
From my immediate reaction myself and also just my observation, like, yeah, I think people want G4 to come back.
As a channel or as like a web page of some type?
I mean, I don't, I gotta go with channel or maybe even a show on one of these innumerable streaming platforms that
like
are out there now.
Like MTV or something that matches its
I'm exactly
aesthetic.
saying that. I'm saying you could do a partnership with Netflix or Amazon. You could do a channel. You could launch your own streaming platform. You could do a Twitch channel. You could do. There's so innumerable amount. It's the future that G4 predicted in 2004 is now, where it's so many different ways to get content to people. There's so many different ways to view things and enjoy things and enjoy the things that they were talking about exclusively. This is the ideal time for them to return. They never should have stopped. And I feel like the response has reflected my opinions that I elaborated on there. But yeah.
Well, but like some would argue that the reason G4 failed in the first place was because a lot of their content works better online as opposed to as a TV service.
Agreed.
Like their biggest shows were X-Play and Attack of the Show, which are both like news-oriented shows.
Yeah, and Code
Review
Monkeys,
show and,
like Code Monkeys, there's entire shows on YouTube that have more production value than Code Monkeys did.
Right.
So even like their original shows were review shows on YouTube that have more production these days than G. So yeah, like they could do just a YouTube channel. They could do that. People would still be okay with it. Like I just feel like everybody's done that. There's 1,000,003 of them right now, and I just feel like the name recognition will definitely get them a place immediately, a comfortable place in the streaming pantheon. But I feel like it might be a little bit of like throwing out the tablecloth while there's still food on it, Like that they can do more, It was G4 Tech TV, going way back to Tech TV. It was revolutionary at the time, and I'm not exaggerating about that. It was. This is what other people are talking about for video games. And I don't know, when you started watching, I was probably 13 when I remember G4 becoming a thing. Right when you're becoming a moody teenager, and then now all of a sudden you're not just seeing these, because before that it was Game Informer magazine, and it was going to Target or Toys R Us or something and playing the demos, and that was how we learned about video games.
Right.
And now there's just a way that we can learn not only about these video games and stuff that's coming out, but what the people that made them think about that. It's not reading an interview. It's talking about that, and they still do that. That never went away. But I just feel it can be bigger than it was this time. I feel like you got to be creative. I'm not telling them what they should do, because I don't know.
Right. We don't know what they plan on doing yet. We can't say if it's the wrong move or the right move. But it's got a lot of people excited. In fact,
that's an understatement.
Right after the announcement, a bunch of like the old former hosts from shows like X-Play and Attack of the Show went to Twitter and kind of like posted their own things, right? Yeah. So the G4 Twitter account was seemingly reactivated simply upon posting the trailer. Ex-host Adam Sessler called it a curious turn of events. And
Adam Sessler, he works for like GameFAQ or like IGM now, right?
Yeah, he's still working like like the game reviewer. Like
he's an industry professional, you know. And a lot of them are, you know. 'Cause that's the other thing too. Like so many of those people are still fixtures in this industry. It's just so much is up in the air. But this is exactly why they did it.
Yep.
Because we're talking about it, and a million other people who don't have podcasts are talking about this right now too.
Yep. Just going on with some of the other people from those shows. Morgan Webb, former X-Play host.
She does a lot of stuff with PAX now.
Yep. I'm just impressed someone remembered the password to the Twitter.
I heard it in her voice when you said it.
Attack of the Show host Olivia Munn.
Yeah.
Referenced her time.
She was an X-Men.
Yeah, she was. Very throwaway character in that movie.
Yeah.
But
she was. No one can take that away from her.
Right. No. She referenced her time on the show in response to a tease, and as did Kevin Pereira. Yeah. They both just wrote a bunch of like nonsense.
I don't know what Kevin Pereira's been doing. I really hope that guy's okay.
I don't know.
I was worried about him when I was a teenager. I'm still worried about him now.
Allison Hayslip.
Allison Hayslip, yeah.
Yeah. She commented saying, also, there are legitimate tears in my eyes hearing those 3 notes right at the end.
No, she's too adorable to cry.
And then in solidarity with that, Jessica Chobot teased, what does it mean? So, like, all these former hosts, apparently none of them seem to be involved from the reactions I'm seeing here.
That would be the thing. Like, there's so much up in the air. There's so much to not know about this.
Right. And some could argue that that's a bad thing because, like, these are the hosts that, like, made the shows.
Yeah.
And they were the personnel. Like,
okay.
Once Kevin Pereira and all of them weren't, like, doing Attack of the Show, I kind of didn't want to watch.
We're over time, but I will find something to cut out to get us to time because we need to talk about this more. Like, the downfall of G4 TV.
Okay.
And this isn't me speculating because these people that we've named have referenced this too. Like, X-Play ended... X-Play didn't end, right? But it got just cut, and then it was just like a little part of Attack of the Show, right?
Right. Yeah.
At the end of it. There was Attack of the Show, and then is like, okay, Attack of the Show on at 4:00. Now back to 8 more episodes of Cops.
Right.
Now back to 7 reruns of episodes of Heroes.
Or they would do like a foreign movie time and stuff
and that's
like that.
fine.
Yeah.
There's 100% a place for that, except not Cops. It's a bad show, and I'm glad it's dead. It was always a bad show. My God. It's like, oh, what's going to happen in this episode? Oh, I think they're going to arrest the guy.
That needs to be on basic cable. And nothing more.
Exactly. It's like, what's happening in this episode? Oh, they arrest the guy. I called it. Anyway. It's just dumb, and it had no place on G4 TV. But again, it was always rerunning these low-budget movies. It was always rerunning these episodes of basic cable television sitcoms and stuff.
G4 at its best had X-Play, Attack of the Show, a few original shows like Code Monkeys.
Code Monkeys.
And anime.
Anime Unleashed was a thing that was one of the first things to go, I remember. And that was when I was like, oh, jeez.
That was a bad call.
Because, oh my God, Anime Unleashed we talked about Inuyasha and we talked about Adult Swim. Anime Unleashed was like the VH1 to that MTV of anime. Right. It was like Boogie Pop Phantom and Better Man and Gadgard and all these really weird Banner of the fucking Stars, like all of these ridiculous anime that you can't see anywhere else at the time.
Yep. Some of my favorites like Duel and Bubblegum Crisis came out of there.
It broadened our horizons to it's like, oh, it's not just on Cartoon Network, this anime. Like, and then it went away. Or I was going to say Cinematech. Do you remember Cinematech? The show that just showed the cutscenes of video games.
Oh, yeah. Cheat.
Yeah, and Cheats, which, I mean, nowadays is not so much of a need
it's
for that.
Irrelevant.
Because,
but like, the idea was sound.
That's great. Yeah, dude, it was wonderful. Or like, they even had like, do you remember they had like video game beauty pageants? Like, you could do that now, but you'd have to have it, be progressive and have like man.
Weird
contests,
enough,
too.
they didn't have that Video Mods show. That was MTV that had that.
That's true.
Do you remember that?
I
show?
do remember that one.
Oh my gosh, that was bad.
You would have thought that they.
That was cringy.
Yeah, like there was so much, and everyone listening right now who was familiar with what we're talking about agrees with us. I guarantee you, because everyone I've ever talked to says we stopped watching G4 for the same reason. Cops is boring. Old episodes of Heroes in the Office are boring. Old episodes of Arrested Development are great, but like again, you can't. There's only so many that you can re-air every single day.
Right.
And that was entirely what G4 became at the end. And we all know it is the elephant in the room. Don't do that this time. Whatever you do.
In an ideal world, what they would do is like we talked about like anime. They used to show a lot of anime.
Sure.
Like do what Cartoon Network does now and show the anime like at the later times. Whereas for the most of the day you have your news shows, your Attack of the Show.
Doesn't even
show.
need to compete with Toonami. Just like like Friday nights you got anime for 2 hours, and then you go back to bad monster movies and reruns of Cops. Just you can still show Cops. Just don't do it during prime time.
Show some of the newer animes, or show some of the like older ones that just never quite caught an audience here, but like exist.
Yeah.
Like for example, I'll throw out Kenichi.
Yeah, like Kenichi's all right.
Yeah, I love Kenichi. But
Basilisk.
A lot of
Basilisk is
it.
one that I'll go to bat for Basilisk. Like that's a great one. You know,
for sure.
There's lots of other ones.
Yeah, just they're older, but they never quite made it as big as say anything.
Totes.
Dragon Ball Z or whatever.
Totally. It's like Basilisk is like Berserk meets Naruto, dude. But like Kenichi is like Tenchi Muyo, but it's only one chick that wants to get on his dick.
Yeah. And but like Tenchi, is oblivious to it.
Yeah. So there's so much great stuff that this could be, and I feel like people who are listening to us talk about this right now, I encourage them to go talk about it or think about what they want. And this is, you know what? I got it, Bobby. We've had a lot of fun today. Guys, we've had a lot of fun today.
Okay.
The title of this episode, I Want My G4 TV. It's an homage to I Want My MTV of the 80s. Because this is ours now. This is our time now.
I want my G4 TV.
I want my G4 TV. Hashtag I want my G4 TV. All 13 of you listening right now, go onto Twitter. Hashtag I want my G4 TV. Also, hashtag the Digital Graveyard. Give us some love, like, share, and subscribe. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and SoundCloud. I will find out how to get us on some other platforms. I promise. I'm working on it right now. But that's you can't tell.
In addition to spreading that hashtag, why don't you put one of the shows that you'd be most excited to come back?
Hell yeah.
Out of G4. And if anyone puts Cops, I swear to God,
I will find you. I will find you, and those cops won't be able to save you.
I have a certain set of skills.
You're gonna need more than cops to save you. You'll need heroes, but don't put heroes either. Okay. No, yeah. So yeah, just talk. Just tweet anything. Tweet anything about G4 TV. Anything you've heard about on the show. Share with your friends. Like and subscribe. We already said that one. Swipe right. We've got plenty of swipes on the Tinders, but I don't think they were related to this at all, and I was actually a little bit scared by some of them.
Yeah. Although I did have a very nice conversation with a nice gentleman.
Yeah, I learned something about myself and about him. So social medias, again, I will say one more time, thanks to John Wheeler and Sam Dunn for the use of our theme song. You got any final notes, Bobby?
Nope. This week was so busy. We didn't even get to go through the rapid fire, but like there was so much to talk about, man.
Yeah,
like,
man.
You guys don't even know.
I'm sweating. This was a passionate episode.
Yeah.
But the next time we're gonna have to top it. We'll see you then, guys. Have a great life, and we're still working on an outro.
All right. Thank you guys so much.